TikTok, it's time to rock. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Sunday show. I'm here with Brad. Oh, hold on. Hold on. I've got to get rid of this banner. Look at these names that we have underneath ourselves. Look, it's a nice new StreamYards feature. Brad, the backdoor man cook. How are you, bro?
Oh, you clowns. Yeah, I'm good. I don't know if that's good.
He's got supreme executive control over our lives, Brad.
Hey, and you're still waiting for your check, Simon.
and the Rock Professor, Simon, the Rock Professor. Good to see you, but and I'm just boring old never a skip at the moment. So if you guys weren't aware, Brad the backdoor man is an anagram of Brad Cook, and wasn't it this cheeky monkey? Wasn't it this cheeky monkey here who came up with it?
I'm pretty sure it was. Yeah.
Was it John ZD? I'm pretty sure it was.
Yeah. Was it? Yes, I hope so.
I'm pretty sure it was, Simon. I'm pretty sure. Nobody has the sarcasm or the wit that John ZD351 has. We want to do a special shout out to him because he's moving, and we've all been in the process of moving or helping people move, and it's never a enjoyable experience, is it?
Andrew, it's always a skip for me when it comes to moving.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my Lord.
Nice.
We've started off on a good note today, haven't we?
It's a pleasure, obviously, to be here with the Rock Professor and Brad, ladies and gentlemen. If you're watching on a replay, we really appreciate the fact that you guys are hanging out with us on replay. I went and had a look at some of the stats before we went live, and you guys are supporting our channel. The last Guns N' Roses show we did's got a few views on there, and yep, Brad's still got the cup there. So we always appreciate the support, and we ask that you guys continue to share our channel and be part of what I'm trying to do here, what Brad's trying to do, and what the Rock Professor's trying to do. We're just three guys hanging out, talking music, and having a bit of fun along the way, aren't we, guys?
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah,
100%. And and having a bit of a fun, having a bit of fun along the way was
Oh, absolutely.
Is this the time now that we tell people that you and I are going to be on here by ourselves next week? Is this? What do you reckon?
Could be the time.
I think it might be the time, so that people might want to share in the joy and the celebration of Brad's birthday next week, ladies and gentlemen. Obviously, we're always blessed by Brad's presence weekly and the support that he gives us, but his girls pulled rank on us.
Yeah. Something's going on, but we don't know what it is, do we, Mr. Jones?
Yes, it's my birthday, so I've got a few things planned for the Sunday. So I don't have things planned. Someone else does. So yeah,
he has people who plan things for him.
Yeah, Simon and Andrew, I'm a very important person. Yeah, I'm a VIP. So
absolutely.
Yeah, people do things for me.
Absolutely, bro, and obviously we want to wish you well, bro, sincerely. You know, and I'm sure a lot of people on the chat during the course of the show are going to wish you know, in advance, happy birthday greetings. It's always an important time.
I'm not older yet, so like this, I'm happy. Another week to go before I hit another birthday. So just hold off on another year older, another year stupider, they say.
Oh, I've just thought of something. Because Hugh Caldwell is in the chat, and Hugh Caldwell just sent me a message a week ago saying that he'd love to come on and do a ranking of the tracks with us, Simon. So next week might be a perfect opportunity for Hugh to jump on. What do you reckon?
Yeah, sounds like a great idea. What would Hugh like to do?
Oh, we discussed that, and I'll let Hugh surprise everybody because he can put that down in the comments. But Hugh, if you want to make next week, unfortunately you won't be blessed by the presence of Brad, but you know the odd fellas will be here.
Hey,
is that odd? Is that odd or old?
Both.
Yeah, both. Yes. Oh dear. So, guys, look what I don't know if you saw this. I posted this, but look, when was the last time you saw a 10-inch EP? When was the last time you saw one of those or
20
got
years
one?
Ago. 20 years ago.
And more probably. I probably haven't gotten one for about 40 years. Look at that. Yeah, this is actually a 10-inch record. This is lovely, isn't it? Fantastic. 4 tracks.
Sniff it.
Oh, the smell of burning vinyl. I love the smell of vinyl in the morning. Yeah, so I've got
Eat your heart out, Greta Thunberg. We love vinyl around here.
and this as well, my signed copy of Chris Buck's group Cardinal Black's album as well. That arrived yesterday, so that's pretty cool. Yes, very nice, fantastic. That was really cool. And so I've had a bit of a vinyl weekend this weekend. It's been I haven't had a chance to play them yet, so I've been out jollying about.
Awesome.
Well, gigging last night, but which was really good.
Tell us a little bit about your gig, Simon.
Well, we were doing a charity show for somebody. My bass player knows, Dave knows. He does this charity event every year. It's to is to support a school in Cambodia. So basically raises money for a school in Cambodia because, well, one of the basic reasons is that if you raise $5,000 for a school in the UK, you know, buy you a few books and not much else. If you raise $5,000 for a school in Cambodia, it can feed everyone for a year and kind of provide a new building. Practically, it's one of those things where your money goes a massively long way in those third world countries. So it's amazing. So we've done it for the last couple of years. So it's really good fun. We go and play, and they have a quiz and they have some food, and it's a kind of evening out basically, which with the star turn. So I don't know if I saw the pictures that I posted, but I was using my stereo rig last night. Self-regarding nonsense. Well, interestingly, I just put the orange and the PV on top of the orange, but and then connect them together. But what's interesting is that they complement each other really well. The orange amp does what the PV doesn't do. It kind of has much more mid-range, and so they go together really well, and they're all in phase. So I don't need to just plug them in. Yeah, it sounds really good, and it sounds kind of big and kind of mad as well. You have to be a bit careful because you just but so we had a jolly night playing. People really enjoyed it and stuff. Yeah. And,
I'll just
go home at 1 o'clock.
I had a gig on Friday night, which is the first one with the 7-piece band, and it was a tiny little stage, tiny. Like I had someone standing, the keyboardist, the female keyboardist, backing vocalist behind me, like literally inches away from me, and then the drummer inches away from her. my headstock nearly smacking at the lead singer, and just it was like that. But
Yes.
yeah,
I know. It's measuring, isn't it? How close can we get without you hitting me with your bass or something or whatever?
I was just a bit shocked actually that the venue booked a 7-piece band to go on this trio stage. It was just unbelievable. But anyway, it's all good.
Oh, I'm sure you've played gigs like that. Well, I've played at gigs where literally you've had about the 5-piece of band in about 2 feet of space, and you're in kind of rows, kind of like the drummer, and then 2 people, and then 2 people here, and you're kind of standing behind somebody who's singing or something. It's yes, had all of those gigs in tiny pubs with tiny spaces to play. We've had a 7-piece with a horn section in here. Where's the horn section? Outside?
What astounds me, and I won't go on about too much, but because it can get political actually, but the venues don't think about area and space for a band. That astounds me that they'll make a tiny little stage in the corner and then they'll book a 7-piece band. It doesn't make sense when they've got ample area to make a stage that's really wide, but they always seem to pick the smallest little area in the venue and go, that's where the band plays. And so if you're a venue owner or a venue manager, think about the band, not about the punters trying to squeeze punters in. Think about the band.
I played in one place and the drummer literally was sitting in the fireplace.
Yeah.
Well, literally, you'll be pleased to know.
Literally, we had a bass player and a keyboard player almost sitting on the drummer. So
yeah, that's right. Yes. You play it like this, point your neck up, keep your elbows in. Yes.
Anyway, but
I know, but none of that last night. I had plenty of space to fit in. Yeah, but it was really nice. The first time I played live using the stereo thing, but with one just one above the other kind of thing. See what it did, and actually it works really well. So I approve of that. But it was good.
And Andrew had a wonderful show this morning.
Yes.
We did well considering we had some issues, didn't we, with Jeff? And obviously, we'll always have a lot of respect and a big place in our hearts on this channel for Jeff and Bob and Curtis and all those guys. And we look forward to Brad getting those guys on to debrief their gig that they've got coming up. But we spent a couple of hours, Simon, hanging out with them, with Curtis, and it was nice to get some acknowledgement for the channel about the hard work that we've been doing, pushing their and supporting their book, because
that's pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah, Bob backed it up by saying the channel, obviously had some influence there with the way things are moving. And I'm going to say it again, it's something that's very dear to our heart, and we've got some great shows lined up. If you guys haven't already seen it on the channel, go and have a look. We've got a couple of cool ones. But Brad, before we kick off the rankings of the track, it's probably a good opportunity for you to talk a little bit about the show that you managed to get nailed for us a couple of days ago, bro.
Yeah, well, I've been working on a few people I want to get on the channel for a while now. And if anyone's familiar with Nick 70 of the Riff, basically on YouTube, he's got a wonderful channel over there. And I know just personally, I've used his channel as a reference point, as a, I've studied a lot of his playing off that, but I've also listened to his talk about gear and all of his talk about fuzz faces and wah pedals and this and that. And it's certainly helped me immensely as a guitarist. Even things that I thought I knew, he's actually using that gear and showing what it does and everything. And he's an amazing talent. So I can't wait to get him on and really pick his ears and pick his brain, actually, about everything, stuff I've spoken to him about in the past, but deep diving a little bit more about. Plus also, talking about his favorite artists and things like that. Like I know when he starts talking about Hendrix, Stevie Ray, or Albert King and all these guys, his face lights up. And
so that'd be fantastic. Cool. Yeah. Excellent.
But yeah, that's one of a few I'm chipping away at, Andrew. That over the Christmas break, I stopped annoying everyone because I thought I'd let everyone rest and spend time with their families and everything. But after coming to the end of January, I better get onto this and start pushing people again. So we finally locked him down, Andrew. So I'm wrapped.
Yeah, thank you. Good work, bro. Because
That's really
like
cool.
Brad said, we've been following him for a while, and it's one of those interesting things, isn't it? Before I met Brad, I was watching Nick too, and then Brad and I kind of hooked up through Instagram and found out, we were watching Dropkick Blues, we were watching Nick as well, and I was always amazed by Nick's talent, the way that he just had this no bullshit attitude towards talking about gear. Yes, he uses vintage gear, but he doesn't come across, Simon, aristocratic about it. The fact that he's using a vintage Strat and he loves vintage fenders and all that. That's just because he wants to authenticate everything that he's hearing, and I get it. I get why he wants to do that, but he's humble about it, and will always give advice to people about taking other routes if they don't have deep pockets.
He's definitely not a vintage gear snob, but he loves vintage gear, so that's what we'll get at. And so that's a good one.
Aren't we
but also, just before we deep dive into this wonderful album, I just want to show Bob, who mentioned this morning that I didn't add his friend request on the channel. So I want to show him on Facebook how many requests I've got. I never look at them. I never look. So I'm going to add you straight after the show. Okay, my apologies. It's not intentional. I love you, Bob. I'm sorry, mate. But you'll be a friend on my friends list. Okay, so
nice one.
Awesome.
Quite funny.
Yeah, it was hilarious. But we all know Brad. We all know Brad. Brad's not a Facebookian person. He's an Instagrammer. So if you want to catch up and keep in the loop, it's easy. At Brad Cook Music. These are the Instagram accounts scrolling across the bottom there, guys. Go and check out The Rock Professor and Brad Cook Music. Easy peasy. Rock Professor, we've got 10 people watching, so the number for a shout-out always has to be 10. So anything less than 10, it's not worth doing. So my computer tells me we've got 10 people.
Let's do it. Shall I do it? Yeah, I think it's always worth doing it. So good morning to Greg Zeppelin and Ellen Toll. Morning, Ellen. Hugh Caldwell. Morning, Hugh. Sunny north of the border, celebrating Scotland's rugby win over England again. Very good. John, ZD301, is doing some stuff. But thanks for dropping by, John. And Holly Lewis. Good morning, Holly. How are you? Hope you're well. And Sunny, Tulsa. You in Tulsa? You are. So I think those are all the people who've made comments. Hugh, John. Yeah. So morning, everyone. Hope we're all good. It's great to see you. Sticking with us.
Thank you for joining us. And if you are watching a replay, leave a comment on our video if you agree with anything that we've said, or if you disagree with anything we've said. We'll always answer any comments that you guys leave us. We really, really appreciate it. But I'll kick off the intro, ladies and gentlemen. So obviously we're picking Blow by Blow, which is an interesting album. And I have to tell you, I did a bit of research over the last couple of weeks when we were sort of humming and hawing about picking this album, Brad. And we mentioned it last week when we were talking about it. I came to this album quite late. I was listening to a lot of Clapton, a lot of Stones, a lot of Led Zeppelin, Simon. I was listening to his first two albums, Beck's first two albums, at the same time. But this album and Guitar Shop were albums that I didn't discover until the 1990s. I don't mind admitting that. So before I just go into a little bit of the stats behind the album, Brad and Simon, do you want to tell us how you came across this album? Brad, you kick it off.
Yeah, sure. Well, look, for me, mine's very similar to you, Andrew, and I think we've discussed this in the past somewhere along one of the shows, but Jeff Beck, I always knew of Jeff Beck through the Yardbirds Association because of Clapton and Page and Jeff Beck, the three British blues gods from the Yardbirds. And I had a couple of Jeff Beck group albums, and I actually started to get more into Jeff Beck like within the 90s than I did early on when I was getting into like Zeppelin and Hendrix and all that. And I actually have more of an appreciation for Jeff Beck as I started to learn his stuff. Like some of the lessons I was getting from my good friend Dave Leslie from Baby Animals, we were studying Jeff Beck. And I still say to this day, no one can play like Jeff Beck. So if you want me to sort of sit there and try and play like Jeff Beck, because I don't think anyone can. But we were going through stuff off Truth, Beckola, Rough and Ready. We were going over Train, New Ways. And we went through She's a Woman on This Is One Lick in this song that we used to go over and over and over. And we mastered it, but we could never play it quite the same as Jeff Beck. But something for me, after studying Jeff Beck, I got more into Jeff Beck. And I had more of an appreciation. And Blow by Blow, this record, it became a staple. I'd go on a long trip for a drive somewhere, for a surf run or something like that down the coast. And this album would without a doubt get thrown on the CD player in the car, or tape cassette at the time. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. Got a couple of comments in here. Ed bought
Morning,
it back
Ed.
in 75 when it came out. So, Rock Professor, what about you? What's your personal experience with this album, please?
Well, in terms of Jeff Beck, this is pretty much where I came in. As I say. I mean, clearly I knew about him from. I knew about him from Hi Ho Silver Lining as the single. But in terms of getting albums by him, because this is when I hadn't only been buying albums for a couple of years by this point. So it's all new. And all kind of, and so when this came out, Blow by Blow and Wired were the two kind of, my pillars of Jeff Beck, really, where I came in. And so got them when they came out, pretty much, or around that time. I'm not sure. I didn't queue up for the list, but certainly got them when they came, around about the time they came out, because they were big news. I think Blow by Blow was pretty big news when it came out. A lot of every week we used to read the music papers, and would have got a decent review in NME or whatever, Melody Maker, whatever, and it's back in the days, only couldn't go on Spotify and listen to it first. You had to go out. It's a bit of chancing your arm, about is it going to be any good? People say it's good. So should we? It was Deja Voodoo, was it? Yes. Shout out to Deja Voodoo for doing that. Well done. Fantastic. So kind of, as I say, this is where I came in, those two albums, and I think of them as kind of as a pair in a way, Wired and Blow by Blow together.
Yeah. I think my experience with this album was, I was reading a lot of, guitar magazines, Simon, and referencing what they were talking about. And Brad and I mentioned this, I think, one other time. We were sending some messages, and it was a Slash article in particular before he came out with his biography. And he talks about Jeff Beck, and we mentioned this when we were talking about Guns N' Roses. He goes to quite some depth talking about Beck's influence on him. But there was that Guitar Player magazine, or was it a Guitar World magazine, Brad, where he talks about Beck. Yeah. And that's what gave me the spark to go out and pay this guy some attention. And, boy, it worked.
Well, that's another thing. There's another side of it for me with Beck. I got into Jeff Beck because of the Yardbirds and the Page and the Clapton Association and all that, like I said. But then there was also, like you mentioned, Andrew, the Slash thing, and then seeing some footage of Jeff Beck with Guns N' Roses doing Locomotive on stage at a sound check, and then Jeff Beck played on Duff's solo record and things like that. And then I bought a Hendrix tribute album, and he plays Manic Depression on it. And my goodness, if I wasn't already a fan before that, I heard that, but that version of Manic Depression was simply spectacular, and I almost dare to say it's probably equally, if not better, than the Hendrix version.
Sure. And look, there's no argument from me, and I suppose, there's not a lot of information really, ladies and gentlemen, on this album that I can find that's easily accessible. So I'm going to rely a little bit on Mr. Wikipedia here, but apparently, according to Wikipedia, it's his second solo album, but certainly a solo album that he did after his band experiences, like the idea that he could move away from having a lead singer and all the issues that a lead singer can bring to a dynamic. It's either going to be positive or negative. And so for this occasion, this period in his life, Beck decided, well, look, I'm going to go and do a solo thing. I'm going to pick these musicians. He did that with this album. According to Mr. Wikipedia, Simon, it was number 4 on the album, on the Billboard. So not a bad feat when you consider a lot of the albums, Brad, that were coming out in 74, 75. So for an instrumental album, ladies and gentlemen, to get on the billboards, that's credit where credit's got to be given. One other little thing too that I want to share with you guys when I was doing some research, and we've spoken about this before when we've done some Stone stuff about how Rory Gallagher went and tried out the other guy with the Telecaster. Who's the guy with the Telecaster and the goatee beard? He tried out.
What, Roy Buchanan?
Roy Buchanan, yeah. He
Roy
tried
Buchanan.
out. And obviously we knew, and we discussed this when we were talking about the Stones, Jeff Beck tried too. He went to and jammed out with them and realised, actually, I'm not compatible with these guys at all. And when I read that again, Simon and Brad, it kind of situated for me, actually, why this album's important, Brad, because this album sounds so much different from every other album that he did beforehand, which was blues inspired. This was the album, this is that signpost album, the demarcation, the album that's the beacon of telling you where Jeff Beck is going in the future. And if you want to pinpoint that album, it's got to be this album.
100%.
Yeah.
I listen to this album and I do wonder, with someone like who influenced, Jeff Beck influenced Jimi Hendrix to an extent. Sure. And I wonder, would this, if Hendrix hadn't have passed away, whether he would have been influenced by Jeff Beck's direction as a instrumentalist and experimented with that too, because he was getting into jazz and whatnot as well. He was big Miles Davis fan, and he was getting more into the arrangements that were a little bit more intricate and things a little bit more jazzy. So, obviously he did Band of Gypsies, which was very funk and soul based. But, after that, like with his Freedom and all those sort of material he was doing, and even Saturn Delta, that album that came out in the late 90s or early 2000s, had that song South Downton Delta, which is a very jazz orientated song for Hendrix with horns and everything like that. I'm just wondering, like, someone like Hendrix obviously was influenced by Beck. Would he have used this as a blueprint for maybe his direction? We don't know, but just something that I want to throw out there that I thought would, because in this album you do hear little bits of Hendrix in this, and I'll bring it up in the songs when we get to them. So,
good point, Simon. You got an opinion on that?
Oh, I was going to make that same sort of point, to be honest. I think that it is pretty much a blueprint of what he's been doing since, really, Jeff Beck. Kind of that, as you just said, that move away from having a lead singer and having that kind of vocal song structure to actually I'm going to make myself the lead vocalist, and it's going to be instrumentals pretty much from there on, and it's going to be I'm going to hone this technique in terms of melodic playing and the way that he does things with the whammy bar and so I think it is a blueprint for what he did after this, really. Clearly there you go off on tangents and do other stuff within that, but that kind of instrumental, him and a keyboard player, as a kind of foil, seems to me absolutely the blueprint for what he did next.
Yeah.
As a thing.
Oh,
yeah.
And the album was recorded pretty quickly too, ladies and gentlemen. Recorded in 74, released in 75. We'll talk when we show some photos, the personnel, and maybe when we talk about ranking the tracks, it'll become obvious the individuals that were around this album. It was a hot band, hot production team. So from that perspective, I suppose it was always going to be, hi Mark, good to see you, bro. It was always going to be an important album. One other question I want to ask you guys before we dive into the tracks, and it's a question for everybody in the chat too. If you've listened to it, if you've done your homework and listened to the album, has this album had an effect on you? And I'll get Rock Professor for you to answer this one, and then Brad. Has it had an effect on you, do you think, subjectively, with the passing of Jeff? Would you have ranked it, or have you thought of this album differently with Jeff's passing had he still been alive? Is there any kind of influence there, do you think?
I don't think for me, no. I think I still would have ranked it the same. I think it's it's always been one of his best albums. That's a subjective thing about what you think is best. But no, I mean, I don't think that's changed my view of it as an album. I thought it was a great album before when it came out, and I still think it's a great album, and I still think it's definitely one of his best in my books. And as we've said, kind of created a blueprint. One of the other things that struck me, I'll just tag it on the end of this question, is that in 75, things are kind of, there's a lot of branching out in rock music and things. And I can remember going to see the Mahavishnu Orchestra and Stomu Yamashita, who's a Japanese percussionist, and Billy Cobham. All these guys were around at this time. So there's a kind of, Jeff's part of this kind of jazz rock movement thing, the thing that's going on. That so he's not doing it in isolation. He's doing it, in the mix with a lot of other people, really. Some amazing albums in 75, but kind of Physical Graffiti, Blood on the Tracks, Wish You Were Here. People can see those artists all kind of branching out. Doing Physical Graffiti particularly is a lot of extra stuff on it, a lot of playing different styles, all sorts of things, and I think it's in some ways it's a product of its environment and the musical environment under which it was produced. In terms of having those other jazz rock was quite big in those these 74, 75. But as I say, I remember going to see people, Mahavishnu Orchestra and things, and in that era. So I think but no, I don't think his passing has made it any different for me in terms of an album.
Brad?
Well, the rankings I've done as per I would have, but even if Jeff hadn't passed. But listening to it, I've got a obviously same thing as when like Eddie Van Halen passed away. You listen to it retrospectively, and a new appreciation, and maybe you sort of sit back and listen and go, this guy maybe hasn't had enough credit for what he's actually done to the world of music. And as much as every guitarist rates him as being the most individual, most unique player, someone you can't copy, one of the greatest, I still think, and listening to say like even Jimmy Page talking about him, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction, all sorts of things. He just kept improving. He just kept getting better and better and better. And that's just a sign of someone. And Jeff Beck would say, I really don't put in as much effort as I should or to get better. So imagine if he did. But to answer your question, Andrew, not really with my rankings, but listening to it, post his passing, it's sad in a sense because he's really listening to absolute musical brilliance there. And for me, almost if I didn't appreciate him enough before, I appreciate him even more so now.
Yeah,
He's a pivotal, important person in music for guitar, but not just guitar playing, for musicianship, for the world of music.
Yeah, I think I'm tagging on to both what you guys have said. For me, certainly, I think it's going to have an ongoing effect for me as a music fan and a guitar player when we talk a little bit more about him, because obviously we've identified that he's a crucial component of this thing that we love talking about, and we like referencing these great musicians. So for me, I think it's going to be something that it's going to unfold a little bit more. But I have to tell you, when I did my last listen just after lunch today, there were a couple of tracks which confirmed in my mind genius status on this album. Now, I want to make this clear before we start the show off, ladies and gentlemen. I'm ranking this album because it's such a crucial album. Seriously, and we always do that every week. We're very serious about what we do on here, but I'm taking this very serious when I give my track rankings, only because I think the artist deserves that, Brad. If that makes any sense.
100%. 100%.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, there's no skips, so we're okay there, and there'll be no timeouts on my behalf. Anyway,
yes, 3.
But if it's okay with you guys, thank you very much, obviously, for your personal reflections. I think this is what brings these albums and these bands and these guitar players alive. I think it's because we want to hear that. We want to hear why we love this album, why this album's important, or why we love this song, from that personal perspective. So again, if you guys want to throw in your own comments about this album and how you discovered it, I'll fire those comments up. But Simon, I'm going to kick off, followed by Brad, and then the Rock Professor's going to sneak in on the back door and round things up. You know what I mean. Wow. Okay, stinging blues-inspired solo, isn't it, Brad? One famous reviewer I read said that this song is full of imaginative shapes and daring leaps. And also made the comment about colour in music. And I thought of you straight away because you've done a couple of shows with us where you are a guitar player and you talk about how you hear also in colour. And I think that's a unique thing because there's so many great guitar players have spoken about that. I don't hear in colour. I wish I did. So whenever I hear of anybody talking about that, I think they're at that next level with guitar appreciation, Simon. I don't know if you hear or see in colour, but I'll let the Rock Professor answer that one when we get around to him. But when I read that review, I thought, oh my gosh, this is pretty good. What I like about the song especially, and we'll talk about this when I fire some photos, but the bass playing from Phil Chen on this opening number provides wonderful support to the song. I think it's fantastic. And also, as a lot of people have said, this is the track where Jeff Beck comes out as this weird sound pioneer with the guitar, and we're getting it on this song. Brad, I can't do anything other than give this a 10 out of 10. It's a great opener. Love it. Never a skip. Phil Chen, wow. Brad.
Yeah. Well, I think you've stolen some of my notes, Andrew. But look, you know what I mean. It's just a great way to start the album. It's just absolutely fantastic. Um, it's got that cool, funky feel. Slight offbeat on the drums. The keyboards, they add that funk, and there's like a reggae feel as well. And I know the producer, um, George Martin, was not a big fan of the reggae feel and the arrangement of this song because he obviously is close to the Beatles. And if anyone doesn't know, George Martin, I don't know if you mentioned it, Andrew, was a co-producer on this album and a very important part of this album. So he wasn't, but Jeff stuck to his guns and said, no, that's how it's going to be. I don't think anyone was going to try and argue the point with Jeff Beck. But amazing drumming and bass playing. It's just, the bass is like right in between the beat. It's right in there. It's so unbelievable, and it's the melody is really catchy on this song. The first time I heard this album, I listened to this song twice, like over. I listened to the first song and I went, I've got to hear that again because I felt like I missed something, and I feel like I'm missing something every time I listen to it again. Not saying that I'm missing the point. I get the point of the music, but I feel like I'm missing so much because there's so much going on. But that's what's so cool about it as well. Jeff's guitar playing is in a league of its own. He's playing the melody. It's very bluesy. There's like this off-time upwards progression, and it's kind of like very, very Hendrix to me, which to me, Hendrix took that from Jeff Beck. So it's kind of like this answer back to Hendrix, like, thank you, or something. I don't know. That's how I sort of saw it. Some fabulous guitar playing, obviously. That really highlights a lot of his different techniques and everything in his trick bag all at once in this song. He's got he's doing these pinch harmonic things, not like harmonic squeals, but the way he's picking. And I don't know if I can explain this properly to people who don't play guitar, but he's holding the pick very close to his thumb, so it's getting like that little bit of instead of like traditionally having like quite a bit of the guitar pick protruding, sort of like that. I don't know if I can see that properly. Yeah. He's actually got it very close in to his thumb, so his thumb is actually sort of pinching the string after the pick, so it gives that little plunky sound. A technique not really used by too many guitarists at the time. I mean, we know Billy Gibbons was a big instigator of things like that. But 2 minutes 40, the solo kicks in. There's not much effect on the guitar going on here, guys. It's really just guitar and amp. Yeah, and this is the wonderful thing about Jeff. He's everything that you're hearing it's Jeff himself. It's not trickery with effects or anything. No. There's definitely light and shade years between the Edge from U2 and Jeff Beck here. Jeff Beck's all guitar and amp, and the Edge relies very heavily on effects. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying it's a very big contrast there. And that's the wonderful thing about Jeff Beck. He makes the effects with his hands. That key change, something about Jeff Beck, he's great with key changes and he's right on top of it. Look, I could talk for hours about this song because I absolutely love it. And I think it's a wonderful opening track for an instrumental album. Instrumental album aside, it's a wonderful song. And I gave it 10 out of 10. It's never a skip for me.
Awesome. Rock Professor. Thank you, bro.
No, I agree with all of that. I think I think you're right. The Edge is a product of his time, isn't it? I mean, that 80s thing which had increasing use of effects and things, as you move. Whereas this is, the mid 70s, much more organic, much more guitar, and not many effects about. Even 74, 75, it's not a huge amount of effects going on. So it's all Jeff. I mean, I agree. I think that things I picked up, I think the drumming is fantastic. It's a great. I mean, to me, it's a very funky track. This, it absolutely is in that, in that, and you can see why we'll get to it later, but you can see why him and Stevie Wonder hit it off. I think there's a lot of Stevie Wonder in this record. Despite the, and Stevie Wonder being on it, but I think there's a lot of that kind of, Jeff's been listening to Inner Visions and Fulfilling This First Finale and those records, which have things like Superstition on them and things, and that, I think there's absolutely one of those lines that plugs into that, and I think that it's really great. I think that the bits where he's doing the keys and the guitar do a call and response thing. That's, Jeff needs a foil, doesn't he? I always think he needs a foil. And what he's discovered here is that an instrumental foil will do just as well as a vocal foil. If not for him, maybe better. So I think that it's important to listen to it like that. I agree. I think that, that the key change and this great solo, he plays with great passion, and we've talked, but I think there's there's always an element of slightly anger in Jeff's playing sometimes, like a bit, but actually I think that enhances what he does. It gives it an edge, gives it a passion, but that's taking away from the fact that also he plays the melody so beautifully, doesn't he? That Brad, you've talked, that delicate, that delicateness of touch that he has, and when you see him play live later on, his extraordinary use of the whammy bar, where he hardly moves it at all, does he? It's not kind of dive bombing and all of that. He's just moving it just a tiny bit, just to give it that, the notes, and some extra character things, which is amazing, and all him. So I think a great opener, and I think it sets the tone for the album. You know how keen I am on this sort of thing. I gave this a 9.5 out of 10, and never a skip. It's a
awesome.
Great opener.
Thank you. Hugh's given that a 10 out of 10. Awesome. The second track, ladies and gentlemen, is an interesting one. I love the idea of an artist doing a well-known cover. It's always a good thing, because you always want to hear you want to hear their interpretation of it, but it also gives you the safetyness, I think, of you being familiar with something and sort of joining them on this experience of how far are they going to pierce this boundary of being familiar, and keeping it true to the original song. There was a lot of controversy around this song when it came out. A lot of people were concerned about the arrangement. Personally, I don't have a problem with the arrangement. Always loved the song. I love the Beatles version of it. Well, the Beatles wrote it. Always loved this. It's a clever arrangement. Max Middleton plays the Fender Rhodes fantastically, and you can hear that Max is coming through with his own voice. Brad, I love that mid-range punch that Beck gets on this number. The tone is starting to come out a little bit on this as well. You've got a talk box slur on a couple of the syllables, so that raises the question, Simon, on whether this is an instrumental album or not. That's open to debate, but look, I'm always going to be one of the guys that say it's an instrumental album. Always loved this because I was a Beatles fan always too, so I always thought that this was a good nod to obviously an important band also in Jeff Beck's life, but not only that, in 1975 the influence of the Beatles on a lot of contemporary artists, well done. I've given this 8 out of 10. It's never a skip, Brad, but a lovely song. Brad.
Well, I was mentioning that the thing in the last song a bit prematurely is about She's the Woman with George Martin. He was, he wasn't a big fan of the arrangement of this song. He wanted to stick more to the
Original.
The traditional way that the Beatles did it, but Jeff Beck was like, you know what, that's how I'm doing it. And I love the arrangement of this. I love how he's made it his own song. And I think, if you're going to cover a song, I think it's pretty ballsy version, ballsy to try and replicate a song the way it's originally recorded. I think it's actually better to make it your own song, and I love how he's done that. It's a fabulous version. The talk box, that does take away from a little bit being an instrumental album, but I'll agree with you, Andrew. I still see it as an instrumental album. It's not necessarily a lead vocal as such. It's just another expressive way on a guitar to add melody, and I think he's done it wonderfully. His phrasing and the way he plays the melody on guitar, it's he's remarkable the way he does that. His arrangement, I will say it's very interesting, and it's got a few different sort of sections to it that the original Beatles song does. And, I'm like you, Andrew and Simon, I'm a massive Beatles fan, as you know, and I love the Beatles version of this. But, to hear that with his own little arrangement with the different sections was great. Again, we're hearing little pinch harmonics here, and we hear some amazing bending. There's a lot of quirky stuff going on in this song guitar wise, and not to mention how awesome, like you did, Andrew, with the bass and the drums, and there's percussion in the song as well. I gave this song 9 out of 10, and it's never a skip for me, gentlemen.
No, that's true.
Simon, apparently Jimi Hendrix, inspired Jeff Beck, because, if it was good enough for Jimi Hendrix to do a Beatles song, it was good enough for Jeff Beck.
Well, yes. You could say that about a lot of things, couldn't you? What's good enough for Hendrix is good enough for a lot of us.
Yeah. Don't quote me on that, ladies and gentlemen.
We're quoting you. We're going to cut it out and have it as a short. Andrew says the wisdom. We can have Walton's wisdom.
No.
We have shorts. We have those short clips of Walton's wisdom. They are. That's my contribution to the future of this channel.
Hey, if we did that, you'd have to super chat me.
We'll send you $1. Yes. What's the smallest super chat you can do? 99 cents. Yes.
Come on.
Oh dear. Anyway, She's a Woman. Apparently, just to add a bit of apparently he'd played the song in a BBC documentary, Five Faces of Guitar, with a British jazz rock band called Up, with 2 P's.
Oh, okay.
Feature, yeah. So he'd done it, so that's where it kind of came from. He'd arranged it, including a bass player called Stephen Amazing. They are probably not his real name, but that's pretty cool, isn't it? I'm going to call myself Stephen Amazing.
Sounds like a gypsy.
It's absolutely lovely. So I think that's fun. So, as you've said, George Martin didn't like it very much, but I think the talk box is just another. It is an effect that he had that was around when clearly, it's the same year as Frampton Comes Alive, and I think he's using it as another guitar texture more than a singing thing. I mean, famously, he didn't like his his own vocal style, and didn't think he could do it very well. So, but I think this is a texture thing. I think you're using it as a texture.
100%.
More than I think it's it makes this a vocal song, really, because it doesn't really. He's saying she's a woman kind of thing, but I think it's a textural thing. I agree with you, Brad. I think that it's the way he mixes the two things together, doesn't he? Plays the voice box, then he plays the melody, then he plays the guitar and the voice box together, as one thing. And then he has that kind of sharper sounding thing. I don't know if he flicks to the treble pickup to play a bit, and then he's back to the mellow bit and playing the melody and things. So, as ever with Jeff, investigating, searching for textures, different sounds, different dynamics, within a song to make it something. I gave this an 8 out of 10. Never a skip.
Awesome.
It's lovely. It's a lovely version of it.
Yeah. Constipated duck. Now, it's not something that you get from a restaurant.
With pancakes, yes, and plum sauce.
Constipated duck, guys. It's 2 minutes and 50 long. It's a short number. We've got a tame Jeff Beck here on this. You've got a nice echo riff, Brad. I like that. You've got an effect going through here that's a little bit different. Again, the standout musician besides Beck on this number for me, again, is Phil Chen. The balance of his bass on this number is fantastic. Can't discount his contribution to this album. And again, we'll talk more and more about the contributing musicians on this album as we get through some of the other numbers. Look, I love the song. It sits well in the mix, but I'm not going to rate it anything more than a 7 out of 10, Brad.
All right. That's okay.
Clearly not okay, yes.
Constipated Duck. I've always just loved the title of the song, let alone the music. It's just it's very cool. Now we're really getting into some fusion territory here. We're getting right into it now. If we haven't sort of touched it enough already, we're really into it. It's a very busy song. There's lots going on the keyboards, drums, bass. Jeff lays back, but he's playing along delicately. There's harmonics. I've got to say that the highlight of this song for me is that moving bass line. It's unbelievable, but the song actually does sound like a constipated duck. I mean, I've got this image in my head of this duck that's constipated while I'm listening to this song. And for that reason, I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10. It's never a skip for me.
No.
Professor.
I think this is an example of Jeff's quirky sense of humor, don't you? As much as anything else, as you say, Brad. There's quite a lot of sort of, almost sense of quirky.
Oh, okay.
Yes, quirky sense of humor. It's and there's quite a lot of kind of like, as you say, kind of sound effects, aren't there? Kind of, almost kind of playing sort of just a few weird noises and kind of, making sounds on it as much as anything else. That I think are, as I say, I think it's a real example of his quirky sense of humor and, doing what he wants. And I think I agree. I agree with you. I've written in my notes, I put bust funky bass. What does that mean? Busy funky bass, but I think the bass playing is the outstanding bit on this for sure. Really
fantastic.
And and the bass and the drums, and they lay down this really funky groove, don't they? That Jeff can do his thing over the top. Yes, I mean this 7.5 out of 10 for me. It's never a skip, but it's definitely the lighter side of this, isn't it? Not the heavier side.
Brilliant. And Ellen gives it 7 out of 10 too, but she's honest. She's saying that she wouldn't have been courageous enough to score it 7 out of 10, but she's agreeing with us. Hugh gives it 8 out of 10, so we're all on the money there, ladies and gentlemen. Ear blower.
Yes.
Wow. Okay, so Beck Brad rips into this. The Wizard of Weird Guitar Sounds is on full display on this song. Those harmonics that Brad's talking about, the beautiful layers of rhythm and the dual leads that are going on this number, it's fantastic. I'm going to score this a 10 out of 10. It's one of the best numbers on the track. I was going to Brad score it today, but I like I said to you at the intro, guys, I want to be serious when I come to ranking this because it's a crucial album. But I hope I don't get timed out for a 10 out of 10. One of the best tracks on this. One of the best tracks.
Timed out for a 10 out of 10. That would be good, isn't it? It's not a Brad score, it's for your band. Jeez.
Hey, this show's a first. This show's groundbreaking, bro. This
Sure is.
That's us always breaking new ground. Yes, this is the
Groundbreaking.
new bit. Yes, you get banned for doing a 10 out of 10.
But seriously, you know the layering that's through this song. It's just wonderful. I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to talk about it, but certainly one of the best songs on the album, numbers on the album. One of the best numbers Beck's ever done. Love it. 10 out of 10, Brad.
Wow. Yeah, and look, it's Air Blower. I can't really say too much more than what you've said, Andrew. It's an amazing song. It's got a great funky feel. Look, the drums and bass are outstanding on this song. Jeff, you know, like you said, Andrew, the king of quirky guitar tones and guitar sounds. He demonstrates that on this song wonderfully. It's very jazz fusion, and he waves magically across the top of this rhythm that's almost impossible to think of how you're going to play over the top of that. He just does it amazingly. I've got here around it's fusion jazz blues at its best. Around the 3:40-minute mark, it breaks down and we hear some really nice interplay. You know, in the band, there's the keyboards and the guitars are really sort of doing a great job there. I've got here, there's some really, really wonderful, like clean guitar parts coming up towards the end of the song as well. Outstanding musicianship, outstanding guitar playing from Jeff Beck. The whole band, it's a 9.5 out of 10 for me, and it's never a skip. Simon.
Yeah, I think so. I think that, again, introducing new texture. I think there's a wah-wah guitar on this as well. So it's a kind of first introduction of the wah-wah into again, a different texture, a different dynamic that it introduces. One of the things that struck me is, I don't know whether how structured these things were. This is credited to the whole band. So my assumption would be they got in the room and jammed it out to some extent. You know, as a thing, somebody came with something and they jam these things out. But you can talk about that in a bit. You know, I think that, as I say, and I think the keys and the guitars play together as well. Where they actually play together, you know, play the same thing. That's quite technically difficult to do. But again, Jeff wants a foil, somebody to play off, somebody to play with, you know. And I agree, Brad. That kind of drop down, you know, that they do, and that moody kind of melodic guitar. It's amazing. It's amazing the textures and the dynamics, and you know, and the way of putting, you know, what the bands do behind him to create that kind of, you know, the sort of the ins and outs and the ups and downs and the rounds and rounds of any great song. I gave it 9.5 out of 10. Never a skip from me. That's a great track.
Thank you, Rock Professor. We're up to the last number on side one, and then after this, ladies and gentlemen, we'll flick through some pics and we'll put some faces to some names, and we'll kick off side two. Do you remember when scatterbrain was an insult? If you called someone a scatterbrain, do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
I don't ever think of it as being a particular bit of an insult, and not much. Scatterbrain just means you're a bit forgetful or whatever.
Oh, no.
That's quite mild in my books.
Well, if you called someone a scatterbrain, it was like, oh, you're having a go at someone. Well, hey, Teresa's here. Good to see you, Teresa. Thank you.
Teresa, how you doing? Hello,
Thank you.
Good morning.
Haven't seen you for a while. Thank you for keeping in touch with us and supporting the channel and sharing our channel and all our Instagram links. Really appreciate it. Scatterbrain. Okay, hold on, folks. Nice rich tones here, Brad, from Beck, and those fast flourishes from him too. Wow. And again, you know, those nice pinch harmonics that Brad mentioned to you guys early. You know, this is a guy that's doing it with his hands. It's not being adjusted or manipulated in the
Tone is in the
studio.
hands.
Totally in the hands. This is, for me, Brad and Simon, this is the jazz influence. You know, we had snips of it, didn't we, coming through? Brad mentioned it on a previous couple of numbers. This is bang where you get it. Bang, bang, bang. You get that jazz influence. And look, we love jazz. Every blues rock guitarist knows a little bit about jazz. Some famous reviewer was critical about the amount of time, Simon, given to Max Middleton's keys on this number. It's interesting how, over time, some of the people, were critical of keys on guitar albums or what they perceived to be guitar albums. Clearly, Jeff Beck didn't have a problem with Max Middleton's contribution because, this is his album. And as Brad hinted at earlier when he was talking about that jazz influence that Beck was going for, and again, the Rock Professor kindly situated it in 1974, 1975. This wasn't in the abstract. This wasn't happening in a void somewhere. This was something that a lot of artists were experimenting with. So having a keyboardist come in and contribute something to a guitar number, for me, in 2023 isn't bad at all. I think it's wonderful. It's clever and it's smart. Go and make your own mind up, ladies and gentlemen. If you haven't listened to the song, go and listen to it and check it out. Brad, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. It's a great song. It's never a skip. What do you think, bro?
Look, Scatterbrain, some very jazz fusion drumming. The intro alone is just jazz fusion for me. And there's that accompanying sort of ascending riff. There's lots going on musically. Around that 1:08 mark, there's a change in the feel of the song again.
Yep.
Jeff, he just provides an amazing sort of thing. He fits over the top of the music, but not out of context, which is what I'm trying to say. He plays it within context of what's going on there, and there's so much going on. There's some incredible bass and drumming going on there, to mention that. And not to mention also the keyboard parts. They fit so well. But the solo from the keyboard, I mean, I've got no problem with giving that amount of time to a keyboard player that can play like that. Let them.
Yeah.
In my opinion, let them play. They can play for another 10 more minutes in the song if they want to. If they're going to play that well, it's amazing. It's monstrous. The solo from the keyboard player. I love the outro section as well, around that 4:50 onwards, with the little chicken picking sort of thing going on. I can't explain what it is, but it's the thing he does. Jeff Beck, he just kind of always surprised me. He just didn't play like your meat and potatoes, stock, steak, and beans sort of playing. He had spice and had all the marinade on it as well. There's a little bit towards the end there where you could almost imagine, if you shut your eyes, Jeff, Beck is actually trying to copy Richie Blackmore in a certain couple little bits there at the end of the song. So I'm not sure how big of an influence Blackmore was as well, but I have to give this song an 8.5 out of 10. It's never a skip for me, but it's magic.
Good point. I didn't get the Blackmore connection, but yeah, good point. Rock Professor.
Probably comes from the same sources, kind of thing, doesn't it? Rather than necessarily being a huge influence on each other. And they're around the same, similar thing. So yeah, I think that I too have no issues about. I think you've got a keyboard player at some point, and I think it's interesting. We got to track 5 before the keyboard player is allowed off the leash, if you like, and allowed to do some of the lead stuff. Before that, he's been he's been playing along with the guitar, or in the background playing the rhythm guitar parts, the chords or whatever, laying it down underneath what Jeff's doing on guitar. This time he gets 1975. I'll just say Bob Mayo on the keyboard. Bob Mayo. As if you want an example of somebody giving the keyboard player a solo spot. No better example than that, one feels. But and I think it's the same on here. The other thing I'd say about it is that, you know, the key textural thing on here is it having strings. Also, you know, it's the one that has the first track has the orchestral bit on it, you know, and the strings give it a tension, don't they? They have that kind of tension in them. That, you know, the way that they're playing gives it a tension, a kind of almost a film score type tension. But I don't know who did the orchestrations for it. It wouldn't surprise me if it was George Martin. But I think that's really cool. I think, you know, that they are used as a feature. They're used as to, you know, to bring a particular atmosphere to the track that I think is, you know, not on the other ones necessarily. Interestingly, the last track on side one, where I think, you know, they've gone into a different area. As we've said, amazing playing from Jeff, as always. You know, lots of textures in there, bit of wah wah, straight stuff, and you know, and I don't think I'd ever heard somebody do kind of those pinched harmonic things before. I don't think I'd particularly come across ZZ Top by 75. I don't think I'd come across them, so I'd not really heard it, and certainly not taken any notice of it before this.
That'll make sense.
You know,
if you hadn't heard ZZ Top, so that would have made perfect sense. You hearing it on this album, then.
Yeah, so I can't think of anybody else who was doing it earlier than that because Jimmy Page certainly doesn't do it, or not.
No,
not that I've noticed particularly. But so, you know, mate, you know, and a chance to stretch out and a chance to, you know, to really sort of put some emphasis into the band and things. I gave this 9 out of 10. Never a skip. Great track, great ending to side one.
Awesome. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're showing the picks. The picks this week are brought to you by this thing.
The alien.
The alien. This is a poster that was included in the Japanese release of the album. I don't know, Simon, was the poster included in your English release?
I don't think it was, no. I don't think there was a poster in. God, it's quite a long time ago. Nearly 50 years ago.
That's the album cover, ladies and gentlemen. Always loved this album cover. I like the mood, that sort of, you know, darkness, that sort of, quietness. You're not quite sure what's going on. I think this sort of sums up Jeff Beck, in retrospect, Simon and Brad, pretty well. I love the album cover.
Love it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I've got some live picks here. It was pretty hard to get some live picks from 75 after this album came out. So there he is there with his 54 Les Paul, and we've got a better shot of that to show you guys soon. There he is there, looking pretty cool. That's the photo that apparently inspired the album cover, Simon.
Mm-hmm. Pre-whammy bar.
That's a guitar that's heavily on this album. I'll just get rid of that banner so people can see that last comment. Give me a second. I'll get rid of it.
This is the Seymour Duncan one, isn't it?
Yeah.
So this is
the one with the Seymour Duncan pickups.
So it's called the Tally Gibb Humbuckers. And he brings that out with Rod Stewart in the 1980s. Bursts it out. Some information there. So that you want to read that, Simon? Can you read that?
Yeah. This is a modified telly that Seymour Duncan, the man himself, traded Jeff Beck in exchange for an Esquire. The guitar was found in 1972 by Seymour at a music store in Cincinnati, Ohio. The Tele Gib was a hybrid instrument that started out as a butchered 59 Fender Telecaster that originally had a slab rosewood fingerboard. The body was chiseled out badly and had been through some unearthly modifications. Seymour put 2 PAF humbuckers, which came from a 59 Flying V. Can you imagine one of about 20 or something, owned by Lonnie Mack, which made the guitar really stand out as a balance between a Telecaster and a Les Paul. Jeff used the Telegib on the album Blow by Blow, and he recorded the anthemic "'Cause We've Ended as Lovers" on it. It could be seen in this performance by Beck and Clapton at one of the first Secret Policeman Balls benefits in '76.
I watched a
cool guitar.
I watched a little interview with Jeff Beck talking about some of his guitars, and he shows that, he highlights that guitar, but then he mentioned that Seymour Duncan took the Esquire, and he didn't realise what he was doing until it was too late, and Seymour Duncan wouldn't give him back the Esquire. So, the Esquire he had, back from the Yardbird days. So unfortunately for Jeff Beck, that guitar was so Seymour Duncan was a little bit sneaky there in a good way. He got himself. It's a history.
Yes. You can imagine Jeff being slightly resentful of that, can't you?
Yes. I would be.
Yeah, I probably might be as well.
So we've discussed this. We've discussed this guitar on previous albums that we did. Beck O'Lara, I think we discussed this. So you can see there clearly, Simon, that's a 54 Les Paul. You can tell by the bridge and the tailpiece. It was a gold top, and apparently, according to the information that I've got here, it's one of the finest Les Pauls they ever made in their custom shop, and one of the most expensive ones. So,
yeah.
There it is.
There's Jeff throwing it around.
Yeah. Interestingly, if you have a look, I'm not sure if I can tell in that picture, guys, but he used to have a guitar strap over both shoulders and connect them for the weight of the guitar.
Correct.
Oh, really? Is it really heavy? Is it?
He's not a big fellow. He's a fairly he wasn't. But in that picture, I think it's just got a normal guitar strap. But back in the 70s, he used to have one going across to connect with the one that connects with the guitar.
Oh, right.
So he had one from over his right shoulder, like a seatbelt, going to anyway. So yeah.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, cool.
I'll grab a photo of it and I'll put that up. Did we show that on one of the other albums? I think we did, bro. I think we did.
Possibly, yeah.
I can't remember. There's Stevie Winwood playing...
Stevie Wonder. Stevie
yeah.
Winwood.
That's wrong colour. That's one of the Stevies. Little Stevie playing a Hohner. There it is there. A Hohner... what do they call it?
Clavinet.
Clavinet, that's it. And we're going to talk more about Stevie later on side 2, ladies and gentlemen. So I just thought it would be important there for us to throw a couple of those pics in. Here is a photograph of Max, the keyboardist. Couldn't find a lot of him from this period, but apparently that's him there, a handsome fellow. But I've included a pic here. So there's Brian May, Eddie Van Halen with a bass, and the guy next to Eddie Van Halen with his Frankenstrat is Phil Chen, the bass player, and they recorded the Starfleet project together. And Phil Chen, there he is there, became a key figure in my mind, Simon and Brad, when I was a young fellow, and Rod Stewart's Do You Think I'm Sexy was number 1, number 2 here in New Zealand, and I was always blown away by this little Asian guy playing bass for Rod Stewart. And yeah, so he's also played, Brad, with The Doors. He's played with Robbie Krieger and Mansrack before he died.
Yeah. Unbelievable bass player. Unbelievable.
Passed away in 2013, but yeah, rest in peace too, Phil.
100%.
Just as a Yeah, okay, well, I don't know if you can see it. Have you seen this? That's a clavinet with a whammy bar.
Wow.
See that big one? Yeah, you could actually make wow like a whammy bar. Amazing.
Cool.
Yeah, that's a bit of fun. Just reminded me of that when you were talking about it. I was like, wait a minute, didn't the clavinet have a whammy bar? Wasn't there a version? Yes, there is a version with a whammy bar.
So I've got a couple of friends who are bass players on social media, and I was asking them about their experiences and thoughts of Phil Chen. And Phil Chen's a monster. You know, he's held in high regard by a lot of bass players around the world. You know, ordinary bass players. You know, guys like us. So, yeah, I thought I'd share that. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to debut some photos here of the rock professor doing something.
Look at that shirt. Honestly, look, this is me. This is me playing the Bristol International Balloon Fiesta with the Steelers. Look at me with a 335, and that's my high watt 100 watt Ford, and a monstrous shirt as well. Look at that for a shirt. Good Lord.
I'm going to have to blow these up, ladies and gentlemen, for next week. But yeah. we had to get them quickly in the show because the rock professor gave them to me 5 minutes before we went live. So we had to have something.
Look at that. Yeah, there it is. There it is. Proof. The old high watt 100 watt. Look at it. Looks about 100 years old there, doesn't it? I got it from Stonehenge.
So cool.
Dear.
So cool.
Yeah. Fantastic. Those are
well
the
done.
days.
Well done, Rock Professor. Thank you guys for letting me flick through the pics. Tim Thomas is here. Hey now. Good to see you, brother. Thank you for
Tim,
for side
good morning.
2. Jumping in for side 2. Let's crack it off. So side 2, what's it called? I can't read my own writing. Something we ended up as, because we ended up as lovers. Is that it?
Because we've ended as lovers.
Because we've ended as lovers. Okay, something like that. I can't read my own writing, Brad. The rock professor's been reading my notes because I was the first person here to make a note of 1975, and I noticed the rock professor's made two nods to 1975. So I just want to remind people that this album came out in 1975. And a lot of the technology that we take for granted today, as we've already hinted at, wasn't around in 1975. This is classic Beck for me, Brad. This is classic Beck. If you want to have a blueprint or a pinpoint, Simon, of a song on this album, we've already identified where this album's going to go. But for me, this is the song. This is the number. It's a moody, passionate song, and I've got to tell you, you know, the tone that comes through that he's got on this album, it's epic. I don't know what he's playing on this, Brad. I don't know. I tried to find out as much as I can. It is the Tally.
Yes,
okay,
definitely.
yeah.
The
okay,
Tally.
Definitely the Tally. It's an epic song. Great way to start side 2. Brad, for me, it's a 10 out of 10. It's never a skip. It's that moody, passionate tone that it sets. It's wonderful. Brad.
Well, of course, we've ended as lovers. It's a sad goodbye. No, I'm joking. From the very intro, those volume swells to the end of the song, it's an absolute masterpiece of musicianship and guitar playing. I'm not sure there's another song in Jeff Beck's sort of discography that displays as much raw emotion as this one. I'm not sure whether he channeled some pain from past or present at that point in time into his playing, but you know, he really caught the mood of what he was trying to achieve with this version of the song. Jeff's dynamics, the way he plays, is so unique to him. No one else really comes close to his feel or dynamics for that matter. It's a beautiful song. I love the chord progression. The chord progression alone provokes emotion, and then even more so with his guitar playing, it just adds to it, like adding a bit of herb and spice on your dinner. It's just adding that wonderful layer of flavor to the music, and it's some wonderful, delicate sort of drumming, and the bass line falls beautifully within the drumming as well. The keyboards are very subtle and keep it atmospheric and sounds beautiful. It's wonderful. The solo kicks in at 2:45, 2 minutes 45, and he displays all of his tricks and licks in the one solo. I think there's one lick that he plays at around 3 minutes 20 somewhere. It's absolutely epic. I don't know what else to say about this song, really. I love it. It would be one of the probably, I don't know, if we had to play a song to someone who'd never heard of Jeff Beck before, this would be the one for me. I would play this one to someone who's never heard of Jeff Beck before. I have to give this one, 100 out of 10. It never a skip for me. Never a skip. That it's the epic song on the album.
Brad score. Yeah. I mean, I agree. It's his best known track, isn't it? I mean, it is the one that you would play. I'm going to evoke the name Roy Buchanan on this. I think this is, absolutely, this is where this is coming from. Same place. If you've heard Roy Buchanan playing Sweet Dreams, if you haven't, check it out. It's an amazing piece of guitar control, beautiful. And this, I think, comes from the same place as that sort of as that way of playing. The swells, as you say, Brad. The way he bends on the guitar, the way just that control of the bend, those lovely slow bends, and then the release to kind of, really give them maximum emotion. I think there's great melodic and meditative playing on this. It's kind of introspective. It is the track of Jeff Beck, isn't it? The one that you would play, and clearly he's played it ever since. Right up to his death, he was playing it. And there's an amazing version of it on live at Ronnie Scott's, isn't there, as well?
Yes, that's amazing.
Which is an amazing version. I agree. I think that the supporting instrumentation is amazing, and they do the song complete justice, letting him, not getting in his way, letting him get on with it. And just as a footnote, I don't know why suddenly the title seemed to me a really ambiguous title. Have they ended as lovers, or have they ended as lovers? I think there's an ambiguity to the title. Sorry, there's a small footnote that occurred to me when I was thinking, what does that mean? Is it one or is it the other? We'll never know. But 100 out of 10, and never a skip. Clearly,
yeah.
It is Jeff Beck's masterpiece, really, in my books. So
wonderful. Let us know, everybody, what your scores are too, please, and we'll put them up on the screen. Thessalonians. So this is the second little Stevie song on the album, Simon. And this is the one where Stevie is actually playing the clavinet, I understand.
Yeah.
It's a cool riff, Brad. We don't have any fireworks. There's nothing going on this number like the opening track gave us. It's a little bit disappointing. I've given it a 7 out of 10. In the context of the album, I can understand where it's going because it's moving into, other territory, but nothing special for me in particular on this number, Brad.
That's fair enough. Did you give it a score, though, Andrew?
7 out of 10.
Okay. Sorry, I missed that. My apologies. Look, the way the drums start in this song, with the way the keyboards come over the top of that sounds amazing to me. It's blending like jazz fusion, funk and soul, in my opinion, this song. Obviously, there's a bit of that influence there because Stevie Wonder's secretly playing on it. It's a deep, thick melody. The melody lines in this are very deep and thick. There's some more talk box in this song. Around, I think it was 1:15. I heard it, and
Yep.
there's more in there. There's some amazing musicianship going on here. The drumming and bass playing together is infectious, and the guitars and the keyboards are like adding color, but they're sticking tight to that rhythm section. I think around the 2:25 mark, the song takes another gear. I can only imagine, how much fun these guys were having at this point recording this song. I tried to picture what it would have been like for them recording this and looking around and seeing each other smiling and really just improvising a little bit as well as keeping it tight. For me, I had to give the song an 8.5 out of 10. Never a skip, but, in comparison. But how do you follow a song like Course We've Ended as Lovers? So
absolutely,
just get on with business, and that's what they've done. Simon.
I agree.
You're not too far off the mark.
Yeah.
No.
Right.
Well, Thelonious, clearly a reference to Thelonious Monk, tribute to him in some way. I think I'm with Brad on this. I think that the clavinet and that funky groove that it sets up, Jeff playing over the top, again with the voice box as as that textural thing. He's used it once, and is it bringing it back? And and Stevie Wonder clearly brings that sort of the extra funk to it, doesn't he? That the rhythm of his playing, is unlike anybody else. And on that clavinet playing it, and I think that gives it extra for me. The guitar playing the rhythm with the clavinet playing together kind of thing is a real sort of swinging, funky feel that they bring to it. You can see, as you say, you can imagine them being in the studio, doing it and absolutely having a fantastic time. Looking at each other, going, tick, 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 banging it, doing it. It's just brilliant. So, I gave this an 8 out of 10. Never a skip. I think it's got a fantastic groove to it, and I think that's probably its major thing is its groove. Really, it's a groove thing.
Yeah.
Andrew.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, we're Alan's given it a 7 as well. Hugh has given it 8.5. So yeah, we're all on the money. So that's okay. It's in the context of the album though, and we say that many times, don't we? There's going to always be on certain albums standout tracks, and the next one for me is another standout track. It's Max Middleton's number, according to the research I've done and according to Mr. Wikipedia. It's got some funky bass going on there, Brad. We've already made mention Phil Chen's contribution, and holy cow, it's coming through again on here. And you've got some dazzling keyboards, Simon. I think if there was some keyboards, obviously, in the past tracks, it's coming through here. And why wouldn't it? Because it's Max's track, So obviously, again, the band leader, Jeff Beck, is saying to his boys, okay, off you go. Peel it back. Off you go. It's all yours. And we love that because part and parcel of what Jeff wanted to do, I'm sure, was have that responsibility as an individual to do that, whereas maybe previous bands with lead singers and their attitudes, they tend to like to take some dictatorial approaches. I think. I don't know. That's just my view. One reviewer said that this song exemplifies the loose, fun-loving qualities of the whole album. I agree, Brad. This is another example of why Jeff Beck matters as a guitar player and as a band leader. I'm giving this a 9 out of 10, Brad. Never a skip.
Yeah. Freeway Jam. Look, I remember every time, like I said, this album earlier, I'd throw this album on whenever I was doing, on my cassette in my car. I used to throw it on and listen to it when I'd go for a surf trip or something like that. There was
Wow.
something about this record that was really cool. And this song had come on and it revved me up a little bit. That drum intro, the way it comes in, it's like it takes you on an epic journey of improvising. It's a structured riff, though. It's very structured, but obviously on stage, you could imagine that they would stretch this one out depending on how they're feeling. In the studio, look, there's some amazing musicianship going on in this song. I don't want to sort of double up on what Andrew said there, but there's some amazing keyboard playing, there's some amazing drumming and bass playing. It's a fantastic jam song. Again, like I said in the last song, you can just imagine them recording this. If you shut your eyes listening to it, you could imagine that they'd be all smiling at each other, just having so much fun doing this song. I gave this one a 9 out of 10. It's never a skip for me, Andrew and Simon.
Wonderful. Cheers, bro.
Yeah.
Rock Professor.
I think I don't have much to add to that. I think it's showcases Jeff, but also showcases Max Middleton keyboard playing. I think that's really cool. That kind of balance between the two. I think there's that kind of walking bass section in the middle. It's kind of a bit more bluesy section to it. It gives it that bluesy feel, very much so. And and then the soloing over different chords at the end, kind of thing. That's pretty cool, and a contrast that keeps the interest going. Amazing, you're right. It's amazing ensemble playing, isn't it? They're really on it. Drums, bass, keys, they're all absolutely on it, and they give it a swing that is, I mean, I talk a lot on these shows about swing and things, and I think that this album has so much swing, and so and that's the rhythm section. They're so good, the rhythm section, that it's a thing. The other thing I'd say about it is that that occurred to me is that it's a crossfade. When I was listening, the one I listened to on. It's a crossfade, and they use this 2 or 3 times on this album, don't they? Crossfade one track into another, kind of join them together, which is interesting in that kind of keeping that flow, keeping it moving and things. It's not stopping and things, so joining, which I think is pretty cool. I gave it 8.5 out of 10. Never a skip. Great track.
Awesome. And we're getting some good scores from folks in the chat too. Last track on this masterpiece. Interesting song. 8 minutes, Brad. It's just over 8 minutes. And you've got some nice guitar work going on this track. Beautiful tone, and you've got the strings though behind. And the Rock Professor mentioned a couple of other numbers where the strings are there, but on this you can clearly hear the strings and that wonderful chord progression. I did a bit of research, Simon and Brad, and this song has apparently inspired so many guitar players and a lot of music listeners over the years too, which is quite interesting because, again, at the time, some people didn't like the strings. They were sort of scratching their head thinking, what's going on here? But I think maybe from Beck's perspective, he wanted to experiment a little bit. He certainly did that, and working with George Martin gave him that experience. Because these guitar players, these musicians are just more than guitar players, aren't they, Simon? They want to do, a little bit more. They're a little bit competitive. You got to remember too that his mate Jimmy Page is doing a lot of stuff off the guitar around this time. You already mentioned, 75 Physical Graffiti. So. I'm just painting a picture here on this song because I changed my score twice on this song, maybe 3 times. Brad, I love the song, but when the song ends, it leaves me wanting more. I'm not like, oh, okay, like Rocket Queen. Oh, what a great album, like we did last week. When I listen to this song, Simon, it's like, oh, I want another track. And I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. I haven't made my mind up. So I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say and other people in the chat have to say, because I love the song. Don't get me wrong. I think it's fantastic. I love the way that the guitar playing floats above the strings. That's not easy to do. That's not easy to get into your ear, and they do it really, really well. Brad, I'm giving this 9.5 out of 10. 9.5. I don't know why I'm not going to give it 10 out of 10. Talk me into it or talk me out of it. I don't know.
No. You're entitled to give it a 9.5 because you've ranked so many other things very spot on. So that's good. That's a good thing. So for me, it's a nice sort of mellow keyboard intro. It's sorry, my notes just disappeared. Nice mellow intro, very moody. It sets a vibe. Yeah, you already sort of got a presence of what's happening there. To me, this song almost sounds like a cinema theme song, like something that should be in a James Bond film or something. Like there's something going on there that gives me that vibe and that energy.
Good point.
The melody is replicated by the guitar, and that plays together, but it also floats off a little bit as well. So it's not all the time. There's really delicate, plunky sort of playing. Jeff Beck. I've put here around the drums and bass. It's just very, very delicate. The percussion as well, very percussive. Song like this really highlights to me how important dynamics are in a song and playing what's needed for the song. For me, it could have been very easy for either one of like these amazing musicians to just go over the top and overplay in this song, but they all play what's just needed for the song. It's a great way to end this epic instrumental album. I'm going to call it an instrumental album. It's definitely one of Jeff's masterpiece albums out of all of his albums. Probably one of close to my favorite, if not my favorite, and a wonderful way to end this era for Jeff Beck as well. 9 out of 10 for me, never a skip. Simon.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yes, I mean you picked up a lot of things. I think again there's a crossfade into this used again. I think that that the strings are interestingly they're on the last track on side 1 and the last track on side 2, so they're kind of bookended with this use of strings. It's interesting, Andrew, you bring up. I made a note of this. You brought up the Led Zeppelin thing. I mean it not in tone and not in anything else, but in the way that the strings are incorporated into the band. It reminded me of Kashmir. That similar kind of they bring a kind of an atmosphere and a tension to the thing, and that the band themselves are not doing, and I think that's really interesting. And I think I presume George Martin did the yes, he did the orchestral arrangement. So, and I think they're a fantastic orchestral arrangement. So I agree with you. It's very cinematic, isn't it, as a thing? But I think bringing that extra texture, probably too light a word for it, to be honest, but they bring an atmosphere and they bring a tension. They bring that, as I say, reminded me in sort of that way of tone of Kashmir. Not clearly not the same song at all, but
sure, but I get it.
I think that is amazing playing on it as well. Beautiful melodic playing from Jeff. It's one of the best tracks on this album to me. I agree with you about. I think he adheres to the old adage, doesn't he? Leave them wanting more.
Yeah.
There we are. You see, well done. Tick. It's worth an extra half point. I think this is an amazing track, and it's a 10 out of 10 for me, and never a skip, and a fantastic ending to the album. It's a great record too. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm not going to argue with a 10 out of 10. I think, it's a great track. Don't get me wrong. It's done well, and I'm glad that you got the Led Zeppelin kind of thing there going. And these guys are pretty competitive, and they were friendly, and they were in touch with what's going on. Before we wrap up, guys, can I ask you about this little snip that I read while I was doing some research? And I kind of got where the guy was going from, and I'm not even going to bother giving you the person's name because 90% of what they write's all crap anyway. But he made this point. He said one of the reasons why Jeff Beck did so well with this album and other albums, it's because of the legacy that Jeff Beck had as a British blues guitar player in the 65, 66, 67 period with the Yardbirds. It would be easy for another guitar player to do something similar like this, and this album would be completely forgotten. One of the reasons why this album was listened to in the first place is because of the work that Jeff Beck had done beforehand. Brad and Simon, have you got an opinion on that? Brad?
Okay, if it was an obscure person who released this, it would probably stay obscure, of course. But Jeff Beck had created a legacy because of who he is. But let's put it this way: could anyone else have done an album like this?
No, not at that time.
So I think Jeff Beck, it was a risky and almost a ballsy move to release this album from what he'd done with Jeff Beck Group and whatnot, keeping it very blues based and very much like electric British blues, But this, I think he gained more fans from this album because of the way that the album was, because he was very pigeonholed until this album came out. I think it stretched him a little bit more musically, and he brought in those jazz fusion sort of dudes that mate, they're the ones you want, because they'll be the type of people that'll go buy a record. They don't just they're collectors, you know what I mean? If they're into what it's like the heavy metal scene. It's healthy because if the artist is loved by the fans, they'll go and buy their T-shirts, their albums, their LPs, their videos, their DVDs. And I think that's what my take on that is. The fusion, the jazz, the fusion people will go and buy these records and keep it alive. And I think that's what's kept this alive, his legacy, but also that he gained more momentum and more fans from releasing this album. That's my take on it, Andrew.
Simon, you got a conclusion and some thoughts on that?
I think my take is that he's going. I mean, clearly in the jazz world, a jazz instrumental album is a standard thing. In the rock world, not a standard thing at all. I mean, I think that what is the Shadows not really doing this sort of thing at all, but instrumental bands. Clearly there was some early 60s instrumental bands, but not really doing anything like this. Late 60s, Roy Buchanan, not much of a singer, but not many people going from rock to jazz funk, going that way and taking the instrumental bit that other way. So it clearly has a rock setting, and is aimed at as a rock audience as much as anything else. But with the and then moving into a jazz audience as well. And I think a jazz audience would recognize it as a thing, standard instrumental album, more than maybe a rock audience did. So I think it's whilst quite a brave move, I think it's also the beginning of his realization that this is what he could do. He had the skills, he had the technique, he had the the ideas and the genius playing to be able to do it. And I think that it's moving that way, and therefore I think that that's, in a sense, that's where its importance lies. In in that it's the first kind of rock jazz, not jazz rock, if you see what I mean, fusion album, really. People like John McLaughlin, I think, certainly doing jazz rock, but this, I would say, was in a sense is a rock jazz album, and therefore going that way, not the other way.
Awesome. I really appreciate your guys' contribution on this. Hell's Pain next week.
Aha.
We're going to do
Yes.
We're going to do Hell to Pay by Jeff Healey. That was the album that
Right.
Hugh Caldwell picked while Brad is skiving, going out, having dinner, being spoiled, getting a pedicure. All those chocolates.
Yeah, all right. Listen, stop that now.
Jeff Healey was a monster. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Well done, guys. Thank you very much for jumping on with us, everybody in the chat. Brad and Simon, as usual, your guys' contribution. You know, on these shows, it's epic. We always look forward to hearing what you guys have to say. And you know, I don't want to belittle albums that we've done together, but every now and again we do a really, really, really good album. You know, and you know, this is certainly one that you know, that we're going to dedicate to the memory of Jeff Beck and also to Phil Chen and their contributions on this album. And we look forward to talking more about Jeff Beck, don't we, Brad? You know, it's
Yeah.
you know,
Oh,
you
yes.
Very good point Andrew brought up there. Very good.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to wish you well, Brad, the backdoor man.
Happy birthday for next week.
yeah. Well, you know, yeah. It's all coming around a little bit too quick. You know, these birthdays. I want them to stay on there.
Hey. You know what they say? Every day above ground's a great day.
Oh yeah. 100%.
And you know, and again, well done to you, bro. Congratulations to you. You know, from where you were.
Yeah.
You know, back at it, out there smiling, celebrating, working hard, doing your home stuff, doing your music.
No, thank you, Andrew. It's been mate, 2022 was a challenging year, let's put it that way. But, you know, start off the year, 2023, I've got a few plans. I'm going to be, you know, if anyone is interested, I'll be starting to track some stuff for my new, whether it be an album or EP, I'm not sure, but I'm going to start doing all that and got some songs written, and it's time to get, you know, the train back on the tracks and move forward.
Well, anytime you want to do a show with us separately about what you're doing, we're more than happy to do that rather than just jamming it in at a 2-minute intro on a weekly show. You know what I mean?
More than happy to, Andrew. It's you know, it's great to share this stuff with somebody. I want to share it with you guys. You know, that's a great thing. And you know, if anyone who's watching this who hasn't subscribed, please subscribe. But also, I don't usually do self-promotion and stuff like that, but get on and follow me on Spotify and add my stuff to playlist and do all that stuff, because just head on over and do all that good stuff. You know, I don't like to beg people to do it, only if you want to, but you know, I've got some new material coming out this year, and it'd be great to get you guys on board. And the more followers I've got on Spotify, the more Spotify will push my music, which is how it works, unfortunately. So
what we need to do then, leave it with me, is I'll grab your Spotify link and I will attach that to the channel. I only have your Instagram link on the channel, so I'll make sure I get your Spotify link, and I think I can attach that somewhere on the banner as well too, where people can go and do that. So I'll make sure we do that. But look, one thing we've learnt when it comes to growing channels, you have to ask people to share your stuff. So as Brad said, please guys, share our channel, share Brad's stuff, and we'll make a point.
Check him out on Spotify.
And we'll make a point of getting Brad on, doing separate shows independently from what we do, so that we can find out what Brad's doing.
Sounds good. Sounds great, guys. And rest in peace, Jeff Beck. That was a great show, guys. Well done.
Awesome. So we're going to have Hugh on, ladies and gentlemen.
Next
if
week.
you didn't work that out, Hugh's coming on.
Yes,
He's going to lead us on. He's our first guest of the year for the ranking of the tracks. So he's going to lead us on Jeff Healy's How to Pay. So look forward to that. Go and listen to that during the week. Thank you for watching. Brad, thank you, bro.
Thank you, guys.
Mr. Rock Professor, thank you, sir. Do you want to do a shout out and then we'll split?
Yeah. So thanks to Jonas Halbert. Morning, Jonas. Hope you're good. Hugh, looking forward to seeing you next week. Ellen, thanks very much for being here. Nelson, yes. Nelson's smoking in the boys' room. There we are. Nice one. So Teresa as well. Lovely to see you, Teresa. Who else have we had in? We had going back up. Tim Thomas. Thank you, Tim. Gret Zeppelin as well. Great to see you guys. Hope you're all well. We had Ed Dana as well. Robert Ranford. And we had Derek as well. Derek popped in as well. So Derek. So that was good to see you. Derek, you always do catch up. Derek Clapton always does catch up. So that's fine. That's cool. Mark Dillon as well. Thanks, Mark. John ZD351. Getting on with his moving house. Some bloke called Brad Cook. Never heard of him. Holly Lewis as well. Thanks, Holly. Hopefully that's everybody, I think, that made a comment. Great, Septon. Yeah. So thanks all for joining. Hope you enjoyed it. And we'll see you next week for Jeff Healy with Hugh.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Give me a second, guys. Just give me a second. Oh, where I was going to make a comment about John Five has officially joined Motley Crue when our friend made a comment about smoking in the boys' room. That came to my mind. Smoking in the boys' room. Their version's pretty good, eh, Brad? Not bad.
Yep.
Not bad for a band that dresses up as girls, eh?
Not bad.
I said, come on. I
And
love
on
Motley
that
Crue.
bombshell, yes.
I love Motley Crue. I love Motley Crue. Well, they don't do that anymore, eh? They're dressing up as dudes now, eh?
It's all leather trousers and stuff now. Not dresses and eyeliner. I think
No.
they've gone downhill. I think.
Bye-bye.
Take care, all. See you next week. Bye.